I remember like we would have his family over and we would have like one bottle of wine for four of us. And I would just kind of look around like, what is everyone else going to drink? Like, and so I would have one glass of wine and it would hijack my whole night. And I didn't know this about alcoholism, right? Like that the alcohol doesn't cause alcoholism, it treats alcoholism.
Welcome. This show empowers you to confront and overcome addiction with real stories, inspiration, and a host of resources. Our growing community supports, uplifts, and takes action to enable a new way of living. Now, F3 Recovery brings you the Super Sober Podcast. Welcome to Super Sober Podcast number 29. Thanks for listening and all the comments and replies. We got another awesome guest here, as always, on Super Sober Podcast. Just want to let you know, I'm your host, Brett C. My sobriety date is 4/21/03. I'm an RN with a BSN. Been helping people suss out this crazy convoluted disease addiction for 10 years working in treatment. And we're going to go right here to our special guest, Kat S. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's up? My name is Kat S. I have a sobriety date of November 1st, 2015. I am a proud owner of a treatment center called Laguna Shores Recovery, also Orange County Detox, and co-founder of a few others. And I'm super grateful to be here. Thanks for having me.
That is, yes, of course. Shout out to Garrett for hooking this one up real quick.
Garrett.
Love you, brother. That Kat used to know her. They used to work together, right?
Yeah.
Starting off many, many moons ago,
Yes.
and they're still continued the friendship. And Garrett said, hey, I have a great guest for you that's going to be coming out to speak at his treatment center. And I'm all, who's this person that just flies around like that and does that? So we're going to get to know her really quick. But before we get started right here, we're going to do some shout outs on the milestones here on Super Sober Podcast. We're going to go with Mark W. with 1 year. Yes. Right on, Mark. Good job. Rich A. with 2 years. Yes. Corey L. with 3 years. Could have took a chip with me, Corey. What's wrong with you? All right. Tim E. was 7 years. Shout it out to the dogs too, Asha and Obi. We got Front Row Joe with 13 years. Good job, bro. We got Joe T with the Bias Band of 17 years. We got Sweet Pat S with 21 years. Good job. And me, of course, topping them all, right? Brett C with 22 years. Just took that last month. Yes.
Congratulations.
I know, right? Who would
Big
ever
deal.
think that I would get 22 years and then be working on 23 right here? So the shout outs, and don't forget, we got the best in the business right here in the background here at the podcast place in Long Beach, California with Solomon. Quick little shout out. Maybe you should give yourself some cheers, Solomon. Hey, maybe I'll do that, right?
Oh, thank you,
I know,
thank you,
right,
thank
bro?
you.
There we go. And so we're just going to get right into it, as always, here on the Super Sober Podcast. Shout out to all those great sobriety dates. And we're on the journey of inspiration and education. So Kat S is, if you see her on social media, she is very vocal. She is super exciting and very contagious. So she is motivated for treatment here and recovery, working on year 10, right?
That's right.
That's right. So
Wild.
why don't we just get right into it here and then get into a little bit of war story with Kat S, how it was, where we're at, and
Let's do it.
bam.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Sure. So, I mean, I wish that I could say that I had like some serious trauma and that my my life was bad, but I grew up in a really good home in Denver, Colorado. Both of my parents were really loving, caring. I come from like a working middle class family, and really just felt super strange as a little girl. Like very common around alcoholics is that we feel not okay in our own skin. My earliest memories as a little girl, I just remember feeling that I didn't belong like anywhere. I didn't even feel like I really belonged in my own house. I felt like I was, an alien in my own skin. And the feeling of irritability, restlessness, and discontent was very familiar. When I was introduced to alcohol, like really had an opportunity to just get lit when I was 13. I was at my best friend's house, and her parents were gone for the weekend, and her brother was throwing a cake party. And he said that we could come as long as we were going to stay in her room. And we, of course, agreed to that. But, as he came up and was bringing us these red solo cups full of beer, I just remember like when I started to feel the effects of that alcohol, it was like someone had finally put an oxygen mask over me. Like I was like taking it, I could exhale. My black and white world had gone into color. It was like, oh my gosh, I have needed this for the past 10 years. I literally had needed a drink for as long as I could remember because I started to feel okay in my own skin. And in that very first night that we drank, I didn't drink like my fellows, right? I was um taking more than them. I was throwing up. You know, the next morning we woke up and it was like so much guilt and shame and this feeling of like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Like these girls are just appalled at their behavior. And I'm literally like, what are you talking about? Like, is there more alcohol in the house? Like, this is my new norm.
Yeah.
And it was really just because, I was trying to um just feel okay again. So when we talk about this condition of, you know, like dis-ease and alcoholism, which I believe is genetic, it was on both sides
Mhm.
of my family. My parents didn't have it, but their parents certainly did. And, it just runs in our family
Mhm.
and was never talked about. I'm the first person who's ever received any type of treatment for it. So grateful to break generational
Yes.
curses.
What I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I, to go back to, when I was 13 and I was drinking, and feeling okay in my own skin, that did become my new norm. I really started to feel uh like I needed to do anything and everything I could to feel okay. And, that looked like a lot of rebellion in my family. That looked like me sneaking out. That looked like me um, smoking weed. I got a tattoo really, really early. I mean, I was a rebel. And I also had this, I guess, propensity to lead a double life like we all do. I was a varsity cheerleader. I was in a lot of advanced, like AP classes. I was in Future Business Leaders of America. I was in DECA. I did all of these things that, made you think that I was okay on the outside. And looking back at it now, I totally understand like we struggle from this internal condition, and oftentimes what we do is try to make the external look okay to fool the internal, right? And
Right.
sometimes it works, right? I'm like, if I can let you believe that my outside is okay, maybe I will believe that my inside is okay,
Right.
right?
But you had not the coping skills of anything to really work
No,
on any of that
no,
process.
no. And honestly, I think about my growing up, and I just feel like I came out of the womb like a raw nerve. Like I just had so many feelings. I was I mean, they say maybe I'm an empath, whatever it is. Like, I feel a lot. I
Mhm.
feel immediately. And I also like to communicate about it. And I grew up in a home where that wasn't like, it wasn't, my parents just didn't have the tools to deal with me, right? They grew up in military homes where you don't
Oh,
talk about feelings. And so here I am wanting to talk about everything, right? And like, I don't care if you really experience trauma or if you think that you had trauma, like trauma is trauma.
mhm.
And, I believed that like I just had this condition for as long as I could remember. And I wanted to like talk about it. I didn't feel okay. And in my household, it was like kind of like pushed under the rug a little bit. So, I would come home just obliterated. My mom would say like, "What are you doing? You're risking cheerleading. You're risking all of these things, college, like you're grounded. And I was like, okay, like, good luck, dude. Like, well, I mean, honestly, you can't control this. I can't control
I'm a
this.
cheerleader. I'll just
Right.
do a cartwheel out the
Right.
window,
Right.
go down.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I really, deep down though, I was kind of concerned. I was 18 and things had just progressed. I hadn't gotten into like hard drugs, but my behavior was getting riskier and riskier.
Mm.
And I was feeling like if I don't make a change, I might not make it through college, you know? And I always knew I was built for greatness. I knew that I was here to do something big, to really make an impact. I didn't know what it was, but I've always had entrepreneurial like endeavors even as a little girl and had this, spirit of entrepreneurship and had no idea really what God was going to do with it, but I knew that if I didn't make a change that I was going to probably wind back up at my parents' house, which was the worst news ever. So,
Oh, and
I
your dad was very militant about being able to take care of you,
no, my dad
or
was
the
my
rigidity of what he wanted you to
no,
do, like, it
my
just
dad was non non-existent, but he just my dad attended a lot of my sporting events and he supported me the best way he could.
okay,
But when it came to emotional connection, it wasn't really there.
right.
Um, the cool thing is, as a adult, we are now able to have that, and especially sober. But I've really had to be the one to form that,
Mhm.
which for a long time I was like upset about. I felt like it was my dad's job to like love me a certain way, and then it was just like get the fuck over yourself. Seriously, like we were all raised like nobody has perfect parents. I even look at some people who I'm like, your parents are perfect, and they're legitimate like fuck ups. Like none of us have what we want. And it's either my decision to form a relationship with them and do the work or I can sit and complain about it, right? But I decided that I really did want to have a relationship with my parents and I feel like I've done the majority of the work for that. Um Not that they haven't, it's just they don't have the tools that I do, right?
Right, now that you do, but back at 18 years old where you had this insight moment of where you were gonna, if you didn't do something before you went into college, what was that again?
Yeah, I mean, well, I was working at a restaurant, called the Trail Death Steakhouse, and I was shamelessly flirting with this one guy, and he was so handsome and, like, kind of, like, the untouchable, like, he had no interest in me, and I was like, "This is strange," and I would talk to him about how I was hanging out with upperclassmen or even guys in their 20s and, bragging to him, and he would just literally be disgusted, and I'm like, What's what's the deal, bro? Like, are you gay? Like,
Uh-huh.
you're not into me." My ego is so massive, and he was like, "No, like, you don't love Jesus. I want nothing to do with you." And it
Mm,
stopped me right in my tracks, and I was like, "What?"
wow.
Yeah, and so not too long after that, it might have even been the same night, he shared the gospel of Jesus with me and really shared with me that all of the things that I'm striving for and all of the love and the attention that I'm looking for,
Mm,
I already actually have through Jesus.
wow.
And that really to have full access to his power, all I have to do is give my life to him.
Mm,
And so I went home that night. I pulled out this old King James Bible that was in one of our guest bedrooms. Like it was definitely a decoration. And I read in, the book of John, John 3:16, and then just gave my life to Christ. And then came back to work and I told him what I did. And he's like, great. Like now we got to start, you got to do something about it. Right. It's like one thing to take that first action, but the next is like the follow up. So I started attending church with he and his family. I didn't realize that he was a pastor's son. And then I started going to their like it's called college and career group, which is the like young like Bible study, and I started to get really involved with the women there, and I did have a heart transformation. I did stop drinking, and I felt like, oh my gosh, okay, this is it, right? Like this is
mm,
the change that I was looking for. Really, the fact that I had, um, like replaced drugs and alcohol and partying with church and my newfound relationship, it did feel like I had like turned a corner. And then we got engaged on my 19th birthday, and my parents were like, even though he had
Oh,
their
so you
blessing.
ended up getting with him after you
Yes, yes,
converted.
yes, yes. Yeah, we started dating probably
Wow.
shortly after, right?
So you did get him then. He goes,
Yeah.
yes. Like, yeah, see? Thank you,
Yes,
Jesus.
yes, yes. And, my parents were stoked. They were like, "Wow, she's definitely, I mean, we love this daughter version of her,
Mhm.
but to get married, I mean, she's 19." Like, and they're like, "This seems really young." And, my parents didn't really come from a Christian background. They didn't really, they're not in like the church. And we were really, wanting to just like, when you're ready to get married and you're a Christian, like you kind of like just want to go. There are not really long engagements for various reasons. But we just said, my parents said, as long as she graduates, you guys can move forward. And they meant that we have to wait to get married until after I graduate. And he thought, as long as she graduates in general. And so we got engaged on my 19th birthday. About a year later, we were just like ready to move forward with the wedding. And so I just told my parents, like, "Hey, I love you, but like we really want to get married. I'm very certain about this. So we're gonna, do this." And so they threw me a wedding. I didn't drink at my wedding. I didn't drink at all, really. I had maybe a few like nights with some friends that were, and I did go like balls to the wall. Um but after we got married, we got pretty involved in the church. We became like youth pastors and took kids
Wow.
backpacking and started doing a lot of really cool stuff. And I remember like we would have his family over and we would have like one bottle of wine for four of us. And I would just kind of look around like, what is everyone else going to drink? Like, and so I would have one glass of wine and it would hijack my whole night. And I didn't know this about alcoholism, right? Like
Mm.
that alcohol doesn't cause alcoholism, it treats alcoholism. And so I have this alcoholism that's just like waiting for me, right?
And your new husband's not aware of the real cat?
He saw me in high school, right? And
Right.
so he heard about all my debacles, and that's when he like shared the gospel with me, and he saw me turn and like really make a change.
Okay.
But he he had seen me a few times get pretty, hammered in college, but there wasn't a concern at that point, you know? It seemed like typical high school behavior. And so, I would have a glass of wine here and there, and I got to the point where I was like, this doesn't make sense because I would be so obsessed mentally the rest of the night that I really couldn't even partake in conversations. Like, I was just like, I mean, and I had no idea I was lighting the allergy, right? The allergy kicks off this mental obsession where I used to think it had something to do with, the amount I take, and it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with what happens up here.
Mhm.
And my brain is hijacked. And all I can think about is, okay, are they going to finish theirs? What if I take everybody's glasses to the sink? Like, would it be weird if I finished it or I poured out, like all the things that we do to try to,
Right.
try to get it in. And like, oh my gosh, it's
And you weren't sharing
exhausting.
any of this with
No, no,
anybody.
no,
This
no.
is the internal dialogue,
Yes, yes,
the
yes,
disease.
totally. And so what happens, if we don't have a way to fix our spiritual disease, we will try to fix it physically. And I've even done this in sobriety. And so what I started to do was run like a lot, like 10 miles a day. I had a Jack Russell that we would run so much that when I got her leash out, she hid under the bed. And this is pretty common for alcoholics when you have this thing inside of you that it's just like you gotta feed it and you don't know quite how to identify it. And it's just like, feed me, feed me, feed me. And if you don't give it alcohol, it's like, okay, shopping, sex, money, all of
Right.
these things, and it's never
Something
enough.
to fill
It's
the
never
hole.
satiated, right? It's just the craving just gets worse for me. And so I thought I was doing great because I wasn't drinking. And I graduated and again had a few nights that were a little out of
And what
control.
was your degree in?
Business.
Okay,
Yeah, I went to University of Colorado, the lead school of business.
sweet.
Um, had a really good experience. I mean, thank goodness for being married and for being like
So you weren't
very
at all the frat parties and all the
no.
parties.
And I graduated
Cat got lucky there.
right. I graduated with, incredible grades and some really great opportunities because of the work that I put in, right? But I then was put in this like sales manager role at like, 22 years old for this call center company that, paid me this huge salary right out of school and I was, over this entire region and it was just like I had no business being here. And one of the first weeks that I was on, they sent me to a sales training. And have you ever been to like a conference or a sales conference
Mhm,
before? Okay.
mhm.
So it's a like an open bar, and it's like spring break for adults. um, Everybody is legitimately just drinking as much as they can, hooking up with each other. There's not really business being done. It's like the appearance of business being
Right.
done, right? And so I remember,
It's in the budget. Let's use the money.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
let's go.
I remember drinking that first like trade show and like having no consequences, right? It was over a few days. My husband didn't really know. I, got shit housed and like had so much fun. My other, colleagues did the same thing. And it was like, oh yeah, like the days of me doing all of the crazy things are kind of over. Now it's just me having fun. Like I deserve this, right? I didn't get to do it in college.
Right.
And so I had this weird like belief that, you know, my alcoholism was or just my struggles and all that internal, stuff going on was gone because there had been a length of time that I hadn't drank and I had
Of
been
course.
abstinent, right? And, getting into recovery, I learned that like if you have alcoholism and if you've crossed that invisible line, you can never undo it, right? My alcoholism, like, is waiting for me doing push-ups in the parking
Mhm.
lot. That's why we say we do this one day at a time. I didn't know that I was lighting this allergy on fire that has literally
You
been
are the
waiting.
Molotov
Yes,
cocktail, man.
yes,
Let's
totally,
throw it on there.
totally. And so, as you can imagine, things progressed,
Yeah.
right? And I start asking to go to trade shows. And now I'm sneaking alcohol when I'm at home. And I'm like just really finding every excuse that I possibly can to drink. Um, and then I go on another trade show, and this is just a few months in, and again, bar, blackout, and I wake up in another man's bed, and I'm like, okay, this is a problem, right? Because I loved my husband a
Mhm.
lot. And I just like this just went too far. Like I thought this was just fun and games. Now I'm hurting other people, like really hurting other people.
And as a Christian woman,
Yeah. And I loved
the
him
shame and
for
guilt.
sure. For sure. And I was like devoted. Like, I mean, again, living that double life. This wasn't an affair. It was just like, wait, how did this happen? And so I went home and I told him.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't believe I did this. This is awful. You know, all of the guilt and the shame. And, I didn't know what else to do. Like, he was my best friend, but I didn't want him to know about the drinking. And so I like limited that aspect of it. I mean, he knew that I drank, but he didn't know that I had been drinking. I don't think. And so, we went to counseling and it was devastating for our marriage. Trust was broken, I mean, he was shook as he should have been. Um and I, he said like you just have to stop drinking and I just was like I agreed to it, but in the back of my mind, not once did I think that that was the cause, you know? And it was never an option for
And you
me.
minimized it too. Well, you
Totally,
had the perfect
totally.
excuse to say, look, I got too drunk, I
Yeah,
blacked out and
yeah,
ended up on somebody else. But you
yeah,
were more in tune with hiding that aspect
yeah,
with it.
yeah, and it was like, "Please don't take this from me because this is the only area of my life where I feel okay," you know? So, I didn't stop, and, as you can imagine, things just progressed and got worse, and, we ended up moving, and I
Mhm.
quit that job, because it's always the job. It's always the surroundings. It's
Let's go
always
for
the
the first
yeah.
geographic. Here we
Yeah.
go.
Yep. And so, we moved up to, like, a little mountain town in Colorado, and, again, I find myself in a career opportunity I'm totally underqualified for, but I'm running an insurance agency up there, and, I went and got licensed in, like, 8 weeks, and now I have staff, and I have a book of, like, hundreds of clients, and I'm just, like, in over my head for sure, but it's not, but maybe a month or 2 in, I'm doing cocaine with my clients, and I'm like, "Okay, this progressed.
Yes.
This progressed nicely." And again, it's just like this thing that, I think because there's time in between drinks that I'm okay. And then, I mean, this is like 15 years ago. So like, and I was in an environment where cocaine wasn't okay. Like I know that there's plenty of people that are like, "Oh, you're just partying." No, like it wasn't like drug usage, recreational drug usage. Like I was part of a church. Like it wasn't like, "Oh yeah, like everybody does it on Saturday nights," or it was not okay. But what happened is I just couldn't really accept the love that my husband had for me. I didn't love myself. I thought all of these things were like I fooled myself into saying, "Oh my gosh, I just didn't really get to do the things I wanted to in college." And so now I
All
got
these
married too young.
justifications,
Totally. Yeah.
rationalizations. I should have maybe partied at those frat parties, but now
Yes.
cat gets to.
Right. And so I asked him for a divorce. He said absolutely not. And so then I just did all
No,
of
that's not okay.
right. So then I just did all of the things that I needed to do to get a divorce. And
And how long was that period of time?
about about a year and a half of like pretty ugly. I mean, I ran off to Mexico with a dude, just shitty, terrible things. And as alcoholics addicts who feel so much, we hate ourselves, right? People don't understand that. Family members don't understand that we really truly hate ourselves. We can't stand living and feeling sober. That's why we drink and do the things that we do, right? And
So you
so,
carried on and you got divorced after another year and a half. And
yeah,
so after that year and a half,
I
then
went,
things really
yeah, oh
exploded.
yeah, oh yeah, became unhinged. Now I had nothing holding me back, right? And I was rebelling against God too. I was really upset. Like, what the heck, God? Like, I got baptized. I gave my life to you. I thought that, like I had seen people get radically healed,
Right.
right?
Uh-huh.
And I was like, did you forget about me? Is this not real? All the lies that Satan says, like, hey, like your salvation doesn't really count. Like, you're the seed that fell on rocky soil, all of the things, right?
Mm.
And I had no idea that, this was really going to be a big part of my testimony because now I get to work with so many people who have given their lives to Christ, who do love Jesus, who do believe that they have salvation, but they're still struggling. It's like, it's a human condition, right? Just because you give your life to Jesus, that really doesn't mean anything. You've made an outward devotion to, you know, like to Christ, but like you have to have action to follow that. And I personally believe that I'm of the alcoholic type described in the book that, like once I lose my legs, I can't grow new ones. This is I'm an alcoholic to the end of like every single day I wake up and I wake up with an alcoholic brain and I can choose to feed my alcoholism or I can choose to feed my recovery, right? There's no in between for me.
That's great that you're on the black and white aspect of
Yeah.
that. And this is a great place to go right into our sponsor with His House New Creation and their treatment centers. Thanks for sponsoring us over all these episodes. And if you need any help, call 877-345-4138. And that number again is 877-345-4138. 4138. And we'll be right back with Kat and how she gets sober and a little bit into the war story. So hold on.
Welcome to the place where it all began, the 9th Street House. Our maiden journey into hope and recovery for his house new creation treatment centers since 1994. Right next door, the 9th Street apartment building stands as a testament to our commitment to providing comfortable and safe spaces for recovery. And on the other side, nestled amidst nature's best, our Palm House offers a tranquil haven to begin the path to sobriety. You'll find 12 unique His House New Creation treatment centers across Southern California. Just as recovery encompasses inner and outer transformation, our facilities mirror this philosophy. The external beauty of our homes reflect the nurturing and healing environments you'll discover within. These are just glimpses of the harmonious spaces where we support your journey to recovery. Our state-licensed and highly accredited programs echo this sentiment. We know that successful addiction treatment is more than skin deep. It requires a robust plan that heals the mind, strengthens the body, and nourishes the soul. We select the best facility to cater to your unique needs, providing focused, compassionate care that sets you firmly on the path to sobriety and hope. Welcome to His House New Creation Treatment Centers, where the journey to a healthier you begins. Your recovery begins here with us.
All right, we're back with Kat S. and her story. And thanks for taking a minute to listen to Glenn's treatment center out there at His House New Creation out there helping people in the IE and Riverside. And just before we went to commercial, Kat was just getting towards the end of her war story right here. And super powerful. Wow. So many, thanks for coming on.
Of course.
And let's get towards the end here.
Yeah, we're almost there.
Where Kat actually transitions from this madness that she found herself in.
Yeah.
And then into sobriety.
Yeah. So the end of my running from God and being angry with God really looked like it, the party was over. I wasn't getting high and drinking anymore to have fun. I was really just doing it to blot out my life. And I became somewhat suicidal. I had a lot of thoughts of throwing myself in front of the train in San Clemente. I had still that Jack Russell who I used to run with.
Well, wait 1 second. How did you transition from the hills of Denver, the mountainous area of the beautiful, where you got introduced to the snow, getting snowblind up the nose, and to San Clemente? Yeah,
well, I actually had a year in Atlanta where things got, I was traveling for work from Atlanta to Las Vegas, Atlanta to LA, entertaining clients a lot. I was in a nutraceutical industry and there was pills and powder everywhere and things got very dark, very fast. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to move to California because that's going to fix me.
Yes.
And my brother had just moved to Southern California. He got married. He was expecting a child. I thought, this is great. This is we're going to have family breakfast on Saturday.
You avoided being a mother the whole time too. You guys didn't have kids?
No. Okay. No.
So you're going to be with the family too. And
the Aunt
Kat
and
this will fix you.
I wrote a letter to myself on the way to California and I still have it. And I could have passed a lie detector. I'm, going to start a new life. I'm going to stay sober. I'm going to start volunteering. I'm going to start going back to church. I'm going to take better care of my body. I'm going to bed at 9 p.m. every night. I'm going to start praying and meditating, all of the things. I literally thought that a move was going to fix that. And I think sometimes new environments are helpful. But the day I moved there, these guys walked by with red Solo cups and asked me to a barbecue. And I'm like, of course, yes, I would love to come. And I'm at the bars that night and I meet up with the local drug dealer. And so, my brother, I am running for a good 6 to 8 months in Southern California, just debauchery. And my brother now has a front row seat to what's going on. And a drug dealer showed up at his house looking for me. And my brother has never even seen a drug. We come from a very good family that that's not okay. He just had a baby and he's like, what the fuck? He's like, you can't be here. Like, he's like, I don't want you around my family. I don't want you around the kids. Like, you need to go get help. And so I was always somewhat like careful about, I mean, I've always loved to work out. I would always go to the gym, even if I was hungover or, doing lines. And I would, again, be bragging about my debauchery and like how I just did a 3-day bender. And this one woman was there and she was just so incredible and had this beautiful light. And like she was very attractive in all these ways. And she had 4 kids, was adopting 2 more from Africa.
Wow.
Yeah. A nurse. It fit, happy, positive, just attractive. And, I would come in and I'd be bragging about what I was doing with my, extracurricular activities. And she would just be like, hey, if ever you want to talk about sobriety, I have like 20 years. And I'd be like, that's so strange. Like, I'm obviously killing it.
Yeah.
Why would you offer that weird go away? Right. But here's the beautiful thing was that when I was ready, I knew where to go. And she was one of the only people I knew that was sober.
Seeds were planted.
Totally.
She knew.
Totally. So, I had really toyed with the idea of killing myself, but I couldn't do it. I had these dogs that I loved so much, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. And I didn't want to live anymore, but I didn't have the balls to kill myself. And so I ended up contacting her on like Facebook Messenger. I was like, hey, can we meet? And she was like, sure. And we met that afternoon and I just told her how I felt. Like I had no purpose, that I felt like I wake up every single day telling myself like today's going to be different and it's not. And that I just wanted, I was like, I got to make a change. Like I want to kill myself, but I can't. I know that I have more to live for. And she said, I have good news and bad news. I said, okay, shoot. She said, all right. The good news is I felt exactly how you felt. When I was at my end, I felt exactly how you feel right now. She's like, and there's a solution. The not so good news is that it's Alcoholics Anonymous. I was like,
no,
nope. I literally said, fuck you. I was like, no, I'm not one of them. I have a degree. I've never gotten kicked out of my apartment. I've never got a DUI. I've never been arrested. I don't drink out of a bag. I don't, I drink out of a freezer and, like bottle, but I just really, truly believed that Alcoholics Anonymous was for people who were degenerates and, homeless. And I didn't believe that like alcoholism was for people like me. And she said, okay, we'll just keep doing what you're doing, but just know that you're going to keep getting what you're getting.
Ooh.
I was like, okay. I'll give it 30 days.
Ooh. All right.
And she's like, okay. She's like, but it needs to be the priority of your life. If you put sobriety first, everything else will fall into place. Anything you put in front of your sobriety, relationships, your job, your workouts, all of that will go away. But I promise you, if you put sobriety first, everything will fall into place. I was like, okay. I was like, so what do I do? She's like, you go to a meeting. She's like, you start your meeting, your day at a 6:30 a.m. meeting. I was like, that's when I do my workouts. So she's like, not anymore. She's like, you put sobriety first. It's like, okay. So next day I went to a 6:30 a.m. meeting. Everyone was really happy. I was so like embarrassed. I cried the whole time. I was like, I cannot believe I'm here. What if someone recognizes me? But, when I got really honest with myself, I felt better at the end of the meeting. I was around people that I could kind of relate to how they felt. When I went back the next day, they remembered my name.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, welcome back. I wasn't welcome anywhere at that point. Right. And
not even at your brother.
Right. And I started to feel okay in the room.
It makes sense though, because going back to when you were a little girl, you had no one to share your emotions with or who you actually really were.
Yeah.
So what a relief that was, that you didn't even know at beginning to talk with this soon to be sponsor of yours. Right?
Yeah. Yes. And she was, she kept suggesting to me that I find a sponsor in the room because she had gone to AA, I think like the first 15 years. She was so busy, 4 kids. I mean,
Mhm.
about to be 6, a nurse, and she had a lot of church commitments. So she's like, I'm an AA girl all the way. I go to maybe 1 meeting a week. You have to find somebody that's more active than me. Like, I don't sponsor, she's like, I know I
Okay.
should. But I was like, okay, but what happened was I started to feel okay. And I remember getting my first week of sobriety and being like, oh my gosh, like I stayed sober an entire week. Like maybe I don't need the steps.
Of course.
I was like, maybe I could just do part of them. And like,
Yeah.
and so I went almost 90 days without getting a sponsor or working the steps. And actually longer than that because um
And you didn't have to go to a detox or a treatment center.
no, I didn't. I actually yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. I got sober and she scared me with that when
Maybe you weren't an alcoholic.
I know, right? She scared me with that when she said if you can't stay sober 1 week, you probably do need to go to inpatient. I was like,
Oh,
then my family will know, then my work will know. I mean, what am I? That's not possible. And I had no one to take care of my animals. I was just like, no,
thank God for the animal.
I know. And so I ended up staying on her couch, I think like the first few nights. And, um, I didn't have like major withdrawals, but it was uncomfortable. And there are, habitual things I do, even the book talks about favoring hospitalization. Like I think, detox is very necessary. Had I known now what I know then, I probably would have gone into a detox because I
Me
know
too.
how, yeah,
I never did.
right. So, at 90 days, I was pretty nuts. I wasn't working a program and I was going to like 3 meetings a day thinking that meetings was the
Of
program.
course.
No one really told me, like people were saying like, you should probably get a sponsor, but I was going to like an Alano club that is very much about sponsoring yourself a little bit.
Mm.
And, I was at my morning meeting, still going to that. Maybe I was 60 days sober. I was at my morning meeting and this guy walks in and he had just gotten out of rehab and I had no idea what that entailed. He was so cute, professional golfer or amateur. And we went out to breakfast the next day and he put his hand on mine and he said, "You're going to be my wife." And I said, "Okay." And he proposed to me 2 weeks later. And then we got married a week after that.
Wow.
And, I was bringing him to church with me. And that woman who was like my Eskimo into the program would be like, "Hey, did you find a sponsor yet?" I was like, "No, but I have a boyfriend." And she's like, "What?"
Whoa.
Yeah. She's like, no, not really how it's supposed to go. And I was like, "I know, but like the promises, like
I know,
everything's
they're coming true. You should see this guy.
And then I brought him to church and I was like, "Isn't he amazing? He's dreamy. He's everything I've ever asked for." And she's like, "Pump the brakes, like slow down." And so he and I were just like, "Well, we're going to get married, so we might as well just do it." And I was like, "Okay." So we went to the courthouse.
Wow.
I go to her house afterwards without him. And I was like, "Hey, you know that guy that I was telling you about?" She's like, "Yeah." I was like, "He's married to me."
Whoa.
And she's like, "What?" She's like, "Oh my gosh." And so then, as God designs and ordains all things, I have lived in California in San Clemente, down the street from my brother, 10 years now. Still to this day, I've only seen him at the grocery store twice.
Oh, wow.
The first time was the day after I married this guy. And he's like around doing something. I'm walking down the aisle, like not the aisle. I'm walking down some aisle. My brother's, picking up diapers and he's like, "Hey, like how are you? I haven't seen you in a while. How much time do you have?" And I'm like bragging about how I have like 90 days sober, I think. He's like so proud of me. And then this guy comes up and puts his arm around me and my brother's like, "Who's this?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm her husband."
Oh,
And he's
wow.
like, shut up. Do mom and dad know?" I was like, "Not yet. No, but we'll." Anyways, fast forward, terrible decision. We can still hurt people. Self-will run riot. That guy relapsed.
Oh,
He
no.
he basically told me like within a few weeks of us being together, he's like, I think I can drink again. And I was like, shit, this is not good. And then he came home super late one night and said that he stopped for a few beers. And then the next day, fell into a pile of cocaine. And I was like, okay. And I just packed up all of his stuff. And I was like, hey, this isn't working. I almost drank. I was kind of devastated. I didn't really thank God I was going to so many
How
meetings.
did you stay sober during all that? That is
Meetings.
crazy.
I know. And honestly, I really didn't want to have to identify as a newcomer again. I had worked so hard to get, and it is hard when you're doing it on self-will and you're white knuckling.
Unbelievable.
It's
You're still
so,
sober.
I know, truly. That is
So
when I got a sponsor.
And you got a sponsor.
Yeah.
You're working the steps.
Yeah.
You got divorced.
Yeah, it was annulled.
Okay.
And
That's amazing. You didn't show him the real cat.
I know.
Oh, pull out the claws and go, let's go.
Well, it was.
So you worked the steps.
Yep.
We're moving forward.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. Let's get into a little bit of
How I met Garrett.
No. Well, yeah. Okay. Let's start right out there because then we can go into what's going now. How you built this. We can take like the next 10 or 15 minutes of this new life of Kat.
Yeah.
Because obviously you got, and every podcast, right, Solomon, it's like, how much further can we go? We're never at a loss for words. There's so much story and so much encapsulation going on. Yeah. And looking at your platform and where we're at that is unbelievable that you stayed sober.
I know. Wow.
It's talk about the grace of God.
Totally.
It sounds like Jesus did show up for a lot of your recovery.
Hard. Yeah.
So 10 years ago, you met Garrett, basically, right?
It was about 8.
8
because I still worked at this. So I got sober and I was still working for the same company. But I was about a year and a half sober, and I was like, there has to be more than this, right? And I had worked my steps. And I was just feeling called to something different. I was like kind of over doing enterprise sales, selling software. I mean, yes, salary was amazing. The benefits were great. But I was waking up every day kind of like this again, just not fulfilled. And I'm like, I didn't get sober to feel like this. And I truly believe if you wake up and you have the feeling of like, trying to like get through your day, you will not stay sober. There will only be a matter of time before you pick up again because you hate your life, right?
You've been divinely chosen to do what? And get into that.
Totally. And so I quit my job. I cashed out my 401k. I had some side businesses going on, and I was telling people I was searching for like my next thing. And at this point I was sponsoring a ton of women. That's really cool. I loved it. I caught like fire to the program. I was like, oh my gosh, when I realized how much easier it got with the steps, I was like, everybody needs to know about this.
Everybody.
Right. Because I had tried to do it on self-will. Right. I had tried to do it by myself, and it was like every day was like, okay, I made it, and then the next day it's like white knuckling it and just like, oh my gosh, okay, I made it, and when you do the steps, it's just like, oh, it's freedom. It's true freedom. And so I really loved working with addicts, alcoholics. It was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that this was a thing, that this was available to everyone. And then somebody suggested when I was looking for my next thing, well, why don't you open a rehab if you love working with addicts and alcoholics so much? And I was like, that's weird. I was like, I didn't even go to rehab. So I met a guy in AA, and he said, hey, I just got out of this really cool place a few months ago. You should go work there. And it's called Sober Tech. And that's where I met Garrett.
Okay.
And so I had come from working, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year at the software company to $17 an hour. And
humbling experience.
You know what? They could have given me nothing because it was an MBA.
Filled.
Yes, totally. And I loved it. I think when you work in treatment, you either love it or you hate it immediately. And I was like, wait, this is a thing. Like, I get paid for this. Like, I absolutely love hanging out with addicts. I love, they're my people. And so me and that other guy that I met in AA started to date, like, I don't know, 6 months later. And on our first date, we're like, wouldn't it be cool to have a treatment center that like people like had fun? They come to us and they know like they're not just like gonna get true recovery, but like we're gonna take them to like sporting events, and they're gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know I could go to a sporting event sober," right? And
Yeah,
so
feather that in, build the new them,
yeah,
and let them know that sobriety's fun.
absolutely. Like, actually live life. Anybody
Yeah,
can stay sober within the 4 walls of a rehab, right?
right,
But
of
what
course.
happens when you go to Dave& and Buster's on a Saturday night,
Ooh.
right? What happens when you go to a Clippers game? What happens when, you're presented with opportunities to drink and you don't have the coping skills or the sober family around you?
Right.
It's always, like, been our, goal and our mission to create a community and to also give people some real life experience when they're with us. So we opened Laguna Shores in 2018, and we had this little house in Mission Viejo. But we have, we've been around for a while, and we've since moved houses, definitely upgraded. We've added some additional partners who have helped us grow up to not just be a mom and pop, but like really, a professional facility. Yeah, so we are a luxury detox 6-bed facility. I mean, we have a chef. We, take our clients to do whatever they want. We really say that we're a boutique facility where we meet our clients where they're at. A lot of our clients come in, they work. It's not really realistic that they can't have cell phones or technology for 30 days, right?
Mhm.
I would love that to be the case. But in today's day and age, and especially the type of clientele that we service, many of them are professionals.
Right.
Um,
Understood on that.
yeah, yeah. So it's been really fun. I mean, we've expanded. We have another facility called Orange County Detox, which is right down the street. Again, same luxury detox. And then we just opened Laguna Shores Mental Health.
Oh, great.
Again, all within about 5 miles of each other. And our mental health facility opened in December, and that has been incredibly rewarding.
That's
These
awesome.
are, yeah, we're loving. I mean, it's definitely a different clientele. I love going into the detox residential facilities, hanging out with clients. It's a little bit harder to get used to when you go into a mental health facility
Mhm.
because some of them might just be struggling with severe anxiety or
Right.
depression, but then we have like some real like schizophrenia, um, you know, like PTSD. I
Right.
mean, there are people that, are truly like they don't have a semblance of normalcy in their life.
Yeah,
Whereas with
you're expanding your whole scope of
yeah,
what, because everything feathers into that
totally.
bandwidth.
Yeah.
And so let's go in. So she also, if you wanted to pull up that second one that you pulled up, not the other one
The
that you
chains
first
to
pulled up,
change.
the change to
Yeah.
change one. She has a platform.
Yeah.
Really quick on that, which is it'll email you back. I signed up for it, and that's
Okay.
like a community that she
Yeah.
created so people can stay accountable to change,
Yeah.
and that's super powerful. And if you go on to change the change, that's super cool. And she has a video there, but we won't get into the video. But it's very interactive, and people post every day and stay
Mhm.
accountable to each
Mhm.
other.
Yeah.
And also, speaking of Garrett, our brother,
Mhm.
going from sober tech to working in there, and then how long did it go? Just really quick, from sober tech to starting your own treatment center again?
About 8 months.
Well, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
But all your preluding of all of what you went to college for
For
and
sure.
things that you maybe thought that weren't
100%.
building the higher cat
Yes.
and to be of service where you're at. Pay attention to this one, listeners. It all comes together.
Yeah.
So many people in the program, they feel like they've lost certain aspects, but our higher power knows how to get us to where we're going
Totally.
and to make our past an asset.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all of these processes that we work towards all come together, that we don't
Totally.
wish to shut the door on it. And here we are. Kat was just flying in from New York just the other day.
Yeah.
And then we know that she's built herself a life that she doesn't need to escape from.
Yeah.
Let me give us a couple minutes on that really
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah. Um, First, I want to give 1 minute to the fact that when I was 2 years sober, my sponsor said that it was time to make an amends to my ex-husband.
Mm,
Um, and I was terrified, but she said to me, "What doesn't get repaired gets repeated." And so I contacted him. It was about 9 years since we had seen each other. He was remarried. And we met. I flew to Colorado. I met him eye to eye in that little mountain town. And I just told him how much I was terribly sorry, that I regretted my behavior, that I never meant to hurt him. And if there was anything I could do to make it right, I would. And, he gave it to me. Like I left him with 2 mortgages. I drug him through the mud, and he let me know how I made him feel, but he also said that, I he and his wife had been praying for my sobriety.
Wow.
And
What a guy.
yeah, no, he's incredible. Like super rad dude.
Amen. You did that.
Yeah, but like what my point is that it's never about us, right? We often think that this pain and all the suffering that we have right now and the things that we're going through, it's like why me, why me, why me? It's like God doesn't waste any of it.
Mm-mm.
There is purpose in your pain if you allow it. And you might not understand it today, but there's so much evidence in my life that God has used every single trial and tribulation, every single, like thing that I have done that I used to feel shame and guilt for. I have healed from it, and now my job is to help others heal. And I believe so much in, building a life that you no longer want to escape from. So what does that mean? Like for me, I had to find out, what do I love? Like what brings me joy? What makes me belly laugh? What are the things that I really like? Because I was a shell of a human when I got sober. And so I always tell people like everything is on the table as long as it's sober. Like someone invites you to go bowling, someone invites you to play laser tag, go to an art class. Like you are on the path of self-discovery. If someone asks you to do anything, it is yes, right? As long as it's sober.
Right.
And I want you to try everything. I want you to get out there and really understand like what are the things that make you feel alive? What makes you feel full? What makes you feel safe? What brings you joy? And, through that, I found I love golfing. I found that I'm absolutely, I've always loved animals. Animals is a big part of my story. My 2 dogs are the reason that I'm alive today. Truly, I
And
believe
you
that.
also have like a nonprofit to save the horses or something.
Well,
too.
I'm Rising Phoenix Thoroughbred is a friend of mine in the recovery community, and I take my clients to visit her rescue horses. I just volunteer
That's
and
amazing.
contribute.
The equine therapy.
Yes.
Right out of
Yeah.
28 Days from Sandra Bullock. right
Totally,
there.
totally. And you know what? Those horses have heard about every breakup. They are that it's like the one place I've gone. I just encourage my clients when I take them. I'm like, remember how you feel when you're getting out of the car now. And I'm going to ask you in an hour and a half how you feel when you get back in.
Mm.
Because I promise you, the things that you're worried about now, they're going to go away. I was like, and maybe for you, going to horse stables isn't practical or realistic, but in sobriety, you have to find, in real life, you have to find the places that you can go and you can just take a breath,
Yeah.
right? Because for me, that used to be alcohol and drugs and all of the things. And it was, not really, it was counterfeit. So it didn't last, right? But like I can be around horses, I can volunteer. I love working with other addicts and alcoholics. I love being in meetings of other women, and being and helping people. Like that lights me up. I love encouraging other people. I love helping people find their purpose. I love showing people, when I get an opportunity to show people the horses, it's like when you love something so much and then you get to bring other people into your world, to me, there's no cooler thing.
Right.
And especially when you know that it's truly going to help them. So yeah, I also am super passionate about animal rescue, dog rescue. My ultimate goal is to do an animal rescue and a treatment center on the same property, and pair a client with a dog or a rescue animal and have them be responsible for that. Yeah, yeah, I'm
So
working on
many
it.
things going on.
Yeah,
God,
I'm
it's
blessed.
unbelievable. I
I'm
wish we
so
had another
blessed. Me
hour to go.
too. Me too.
But so many things. And this is, Kat's going to be flying out to Michigan, and then she's a part of a group that's starting a new place in Wisconsin. Then she's
Mhm.
going to Florida, Michigan, New York, Wisconsin, all within the next week. And
Yeah.
speaking at Garrett's Treatment
Yeah.
Center,
Yeah.
I mean, what a full life,
Yeah.
and how
Speaking of
passionate that
Florida.
is. And I
Yeah.
want to just say a special thanks for going from zero to podcast and so quick, and scheduling this to
Of
be on the
course.
podcast. And we're going to be on all platforms. Anything you want to say in the last couple minutes, or?
And if I could just say one thing too on
Yeah.
my social media, I I recover out loud and I break my anonymity because someone broke theirs for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not joking you, and this is no exaggeration. Hundreds of people reach out to me and say, you're the only person I know sober. And I'm talking to a complete stranger because I have so much guilt and shame.
Mm.
And, I encourage them to, seek 12-step treatment because that's what I did. It's free. It's available to everyone. It's everywhere. It's the greatest spiritual movement on the entire earth, and people are
I say
staying
the same
sober.
thing.
Yes. But that's why I created my Chains to Change program, which is an online platform, is because they can create an alias. So many people have so many people also say like, "Hey, I didn't want to like your last post because I don't want my family to see." I'm like, "Oh my goodness." Like there is
The
guilt
shame
and
runs
shame,
deep.
and yeah, totally. And that's, like that's why I'm so passionate about healing out loud and being so vocal, is because even if I can just help one person, even if just one person is like, "Oh my gosh, I identify with her." Like, and then I answer every single one of my DMs. I'm
Woo.
like, I mean, it's my ministry. It's my purpose. It is my like joy is to say, "Hey, there's hope." And I tell them how I did it. And then after that, I just say, "Hey, now you have the tools. It's up to you to pick them up."
Now you know what you're going to do with that
Right.
inspiration and education. I'm going to do some shout outs here on the Super Sober Podcast is all. You can email us with any comments, questions, or concerns. You love us, hate us, indifferent us, whatever. info@f3recovery.org or info@supersoberpodcast.org. We're on f3recovery.org on the website, and you can follow us on all platforms. You just punch in Super Sober Podcast. We're there. Another shout out to the best in the business here at the podcast place in Solomon. And don't forget to check out the Detox, the streaming series I wrote for recovery, the story of addiction, the deadliest disease that man has ever known. It's on the website. You can see the one sheet. Anybody want to promote something that's never been done before? There you go for Hollywood or anybody. And shout out to Notorious JID kicking back the whole time, the first mascot in recovery, Notorious Jails, Institutions, and Death. We don't need to go there. Too much of that happening. So here we go. Thanks for watching and listening, and wherever you're at, keep on keeping on.
Thank you for listening to the Super Sober Podcast. Go to our website at f3recovery.org. That's F3Recovery, all one word, .org. We're turning fight, flight, and freeze into free form and flowing through practicing the 12 steps and staying accountable to change. Don't forget to keep on keeping on.